The studio lights beamed down like spotlights in an interrogation room, unrelenting and precise, casting sharp silhouettes onto the glossy stage floor. The audience buzzed with that trademark blend of excitement and tension, expecting laughter. Perhaps some tech banter? Nothing more. But the moment Elon Musk walked out from behind the curtain, something was already different. He wore his usual black blazer over a dark tee, but his eyes betrayed a different energy distend, almost glazed. Stephen Colbert greeted him with his usual charm, but his smile was lined with something less playful tonight. There had been whispers backstage of tension, of bad blood, of Colbert preparing questions that Musk's team had explicitly requested. To avoid, the handshake between them was firm, but lacked warmth. The air held a charge, static and wild, as if the universe itself knew that this would not be another ordinary segment of late-night television. Colbert's tone was friendly at first, even deferential. They talked about rockets, Mars, Neuralink. The audience chuckled on cue, applauding Musk's usual quips and visions of colonizing the stars. But then, mid-sentence, Colbert's eyes narrowed. He leaned in, his voice dipping an octave as he asked, "But what happens when the man who wants to save humanity can't even save his own workers?" A hush fell like a curtain. Musk blinked slowly, processing the sudden shift. "Excuse me?" he replied, his voice quiet but laced with ice. Colbert didn't flinch. "I'm talking about the suicides, the factory injuries, the lawsuits, the NDAs. You dream of Mars. But what about Earth?" The audience gasped, a collective inhale that sucked the air from the room. Musk's face froze, not in confusion, but recognition. He had prepared for many questions. Not this one. Not here. Not like this. The atmosphere shifted from entertainment to confrontation. Musk's fingers twitched subtly, betraying his discomfort. He adjusted in his seat, attempting to reclaim composure, but the fire in Colbert's tone only grew. "You're one of the richest men in history. And yet, there are employees sleeping in their cars, afraid to report injuries, silenced by contracts. You champion AI and space travel, but what about the human cost?" Every word hit like a hammer. Musk opened his mouth, paused, then finally said, "I care deeply about every person who works with us, but you're painting a picture that's sensationalized," the crowd murmured. Colbert leaned back slowly. "Am I? Or is it just the first time someone said it to your face on, your level without kissing your shoes?" Musk's lips parted as if to speak, but nothing came out. His jaw tightened. For the first time on live television, Elon Musk looked ... small. Musk attempted to deflect. He brought up mission statements, quarterly growth, employee benefits packages, but it was too late. The audience wasn't listening to the words, they were watching the man unravel. Colbert's silence became more powerful than any follow-up question. He just sat, staring, not smirking, not mocking, just waiting, letting the weight of reality crush the carefully curated image of a genius visionary. "You call yourself a realist, right?" Colbert finally said. "So let's be real. Are you building the future or running from the present?" Musk blinked rapidly. The camera zoomed in. There was a glimmer in his eyes, barely noticeable. Not sweat, not nerves, something more vulnerable, something dangerous. He looked away for the first time, jaw clenched, lips tight. And in that single moment, the illusion began to collapse. The titan of tech, brought low by nothing but truth and timing. The room held its breath. Even the audience, once lively, sat in stunned silence. Colbert's voice softened out of pity but precision. "You say you're trying to save humanity, but you've become untouchable, unaccountable. You tweet recklessly, you mock regulators, you gamble with public trust. Is this really about the future, or is it about ego?" Musk's throat moved as he swallowed hard. I've made mistakes," he said quietly, "but my intentions have always been good." Colbert didn't interrupt. He let Musk speak, but the damage was done. This wasn't a debate. It was a reckoning. Musk's hands trembled slightly, and though he tried to hide it, the lens caught it all broadcast live to millions. His image, so carefully manicured, was cracking. Beneath the tech mogul, the icon, the innovator, there was just a man. And that man was struggling to breathe. Elon's voice began to falter. His words became harder to parse. You don't understand the pressure, the scale of it, the responsibility. He looked out toward the audience as if seeking empathy, but found only stunned faces. Colbert, ever the showman, offered no lifeline. Pressure doesn't excuse harm. Responsibility means accountability. And I think somewhere along the way, you forgot that. It was the final push. Musk's eyes welled, the tears unfalling, but visible. He lowered his gaze, trying to retreat into himself. But there was no escape here. No boardroom, no Twitter army, no PR spin. Just raw exposure. One tear slid down, trailing across his cheek like oil on a metal surface. Colbert sat silently. The audience didn't clap. They watched a billionaire break not in rage or indignation, but in helplessness. Time seemed suspended. Colbert, finally, shifted in his chair, not smugly, but almost solemnly. Elon, this wasn't supposed to be a tearing down. I admire your ambition. But ambition without humility is a kind of violence. Musk nodded faintly, unable to find words. Another tear. The man who had spoken of interplanetary empires now sat shattered under studio lights, more human than anyone had ever seen him. The silence stretched. A few audience members looked away, uncomfortable witnessing what felt like something intimate or real for entertainment. The camera didn't cut. The producers didn't interrupt. This was no longer a show. This was history. Then, softly, almost like a whisper, Musk muttered, "Maybe I've gone too far." It wasn't dramatic. It was barely audible. But Colbert heard it, maybe, he replied. But it's not too late if you listen. That was the first moment of mercy in the entire exchange. Musk looked up, eyes red, lips trembling. "I want to do better," he said. Colbert leaned forward. "Then start by hearing the people you've overlooked. Stop hiding behind vision, and start standing in truth." The audience stirred. Something had shifted. The temperature in the room rose, no longer cold and hard, but something warmer, not forgiveness, but recognition. Musk took a deep breath, his chest rising and falling. Slowly, "This wasn't what I expected," he said. Colbert smiled faintly. "It never is." The crowd exhaled together like a single creature. The segment was ending, but no one would forget what had just unfolded. The curtain wasn't falling. On a man, it was falling on a myth, and from its ashes, maybe something real could rise. The kind of real that builds not rockets or robots, but bridges. The kind of real that doesn't need applause to matter. As the music cue played and the lights dimmed, Elon stood slowly. He didn't shake Colbert's hand. He simply nodded. Not in defeat, but in acknowledgement. And with that, he walked off the stage not like a mogul, not like a martyr, but like a man trying to remember what it meant to be human. The audience remained silent long after he disappeared backstage. Colbert stared at the empty chair for a moment, then looked to the camera. He didn't crack a joke. He didn't wrap it with a bow. He simply said, "We'll be right back." But they all knew no one would ever look at that chair the same way again. The night Stephen Colbert made Elon Musk cry on live TV wasn't about breaking a man. It was about breaking the silence. And in that silence, the world heard something it hadn't in a long time. Truth,